here is your toe reading. So when I'm first looking at your toes, the first thing that I notice, if you can see here, your first toes, your great toes, these are your path toes. And as I'm looking at them, you can see on your right foot and then on your left foot that both of them lean just a little bit towards the smaller toes. That's looking to the past. Now, if you look at your nails, there's some difference in the nails. On your left foot, that nail is leaning that way also. On your right foot, the nail almost looks like it's moving against the motion of the toe and becoming more straight. So I'll tell you what that means, then we'll talk about what it means specifically. So when your toe is not straight, when it's leaning towards the pinky toe, that is looking to the past. When it's leaning the other way, like you see here with your little toes, that is looking to the future. The challenge is that it is not present. And that's what we desire is presence. Toe reading will look at your toes in the present moment. It can be predictive in that current trajectory is often what is the future if we don't do something. And that's the power in toe reading, is that by seeing where you are going right now, you can then continue on that path or pattern interrupt. So let's look at this toe, this right great toe. This is your life path toe. So I'm going to guess that maybe you've wandered around just a little bit. You can see clear down here in this first knuckle of the toe. We've got a little bit of a bulge there, some blocked energy there, maybe some wandering around, wondering what you were going to do, how you were going to put your skill sets into and your desires into how you made a living and your life path. Maybe some questions about children. There's a lot of things. And when we have our session, we will talk more about this. But you can see that for a long time, there's been some blocked energy because this is where it starts tracking and then it moves this way. What I'm pleased about here is that this nail is starting to straighten out. So the path that you are on right now is bringing this into alignment. Changes start in the nail and then move back. What I would love to see is in 6 months, how this toe is moving more towards the center line and towards straightness, because your nail is definitely starting that way. I would definitely practice some grounding exercises. This toe is lifted just a little bit, and we would love it to be just a little bit more grounded. And so some grounding exercises would be really powerful for that. Let's move over here to the left toe. Of the two toes, this would be the one that I saw the first, because I see there the greatest space where alignment would benefit you in your life. Because on here, you can see we have less blocked energy here at an earlier point in life, moving down. But here in the last 20 years or so, and increasing as we have moved into the present, we can see that this toe has started to move this way. And this is your spirit path toe. Furthermore, the nail here is continuing to look to the past. So this could be a couple of things, which again, when we have our session, we will talk more about. It could be a leaving of a spiritual path that you're looking to because it brought some level of stability, predictability, certainty, comfort, the things that we seek for in a spiritual path. It can also be dealing with issues from a spiritual path. I see this a lot with people who are in a quote unquote, and I put this in air quotes, a faith crisis or a changing of belief systems, because there is a level of looking back and seeing what was so that you can create a different future. Now, I would love to explore this in more depth with you, because if it was more the second, what I talked about, where you're looking to the past to change what you've got going on in the future. I'm not seeing that in this first nail. Now, this could be a relatively new change in your awareness, even though it started several years ago back here in the second knuckle. Um, However, you can see that this is very ungrounded right here on the inside of that big toe. And that toenail is leaning towards the past, looking to the past. So before our session, really lean into that and kind of feel in, where is that? How is that presenting? And then we'll talk about it more. Groundedness exercises would still be highly beneficial for you, especially in the spiritual realm. Sometimes we think of the spiritual realm as being the not grounded part, but it's hard to be in the spiritual realm if we are not grounded. Being grounded to this earth is part of our spiritual path. And so this and your pinky toes and your left relationship toe are actually the toes that, as far as areas for contemplation, these are the areas where I'm seeing it the most. So really lean into that. And the path that you're on right now is not leading you into alignment, or this nail would show it up. So let's experiment with that. Let's move on to the second toe, which is your expression toe. Your right foot is how you present to the world. Your left foot is what's going on internally. And so let's just look at the difference in these toes. On your right foot here, this toe is a little bit more upright and slightly more grounded and more straight. Additionally, there is a little less blocked energy. So the way that you are expressing in the world is showing up in some confidence, in alignment. If you look at this toe really is, with the exception of just this little bend here, which is fairly recent, but the nail is still facing forward, so I'm not too concerned about that, is in alignment. So this is really great to see with this spirit path, not the spirit path, the life path. I want to be very clear, this is your life path. With your life path, how this nail is moving straight, this is supporting it. Also, this space between your toes, how you've got this nice space here, is a sign of leadership. You are a leader. So as you become more grounded in your paths, I predict that this space here is going to increase, which will indicate as well as support your stepping into even more leadership in what you're doing in your powerful work in this world. Let's look at this left foot. If you look at this left toe, it looks somewhat withered, if you will, compared to what's showing up in your right foot here. So the question here is, what is your communication with yourself? Do you feel a need to prove yourself? Do you question the way that you're showing up? Do you feel like you have to fight to maintain your boundaries or to show up authentically? Do you feel like that's a battle? Further, this nail and this toe are pointing a little bit more to the past. This has to do with this spirit path. So again, areas to ponder and to contemplate are definitely your spirit path, and then this expression and how this shows up. I feel like you're in a little bit of a state of transition in the way that you're doing things internally, perhaps your self-talk. So really honing in on, what am I saying to myself? Is what I'm saying to myself and then the way that I'm presenting to the outside world, is that in alignment? Is that cohesive? Is it the same thing? I mean, of course, we've got dialogue going on in our heads all the time that we wouldn't necessarily say, nor should we. Just because we think it doesn't mean we need to say it. And there may be things that you are thinking that would benefit you and benefit the world by saying, if you can come up with a way that will benefit you. What we want to move away from is fighting energy, battling energy where we feel like we've got something to prove. So contemplate on that, and we'll discuss that more in your in-person reading. Same thing here. If you could look at this big toe here, this great toe, if it shifted into straight alignment here, the path toe would create a separation between that and the communication toe, really supporting and showing up in your leadership. And because I know what you do for a living, and because a lot of it really is this inner path, the power in that would be so supportive to you and the people in your sphere of influence. So these two toes are tied together. They're touching. Same here. They're touching. That's a good thing. And with both of these toes, because I can see how if they tracked more straight, they would pull away from that communication expression toe. That is actually your path of alignment in leadership. When your great toe stands by itself, as long as it's not extreme, which yours aren't, so I'm not going to go into that here. It is a place of leadership because you can stand on your own. We're not dependent on other things outside of us that are supporting us. It is just, we are independent. Let's look at the action toes. So with the action toes, I see a lot of the same thing as I see with the communication toes. If you look at this action toe, it is pointing a little bit upward or straight there in the nail, whereas this one is pointing a little bit down. You show a lot of flexibility, so I'm going to guess that adaptability is one of your superpowers, because I am seeing flexibility in both your communication and action toes on both feet. Your actions, you can see the separation between your action toes and your communication toes. You are independent in your actions from your communication, which is awesome. You see more connection here. And I want to bring this up because in your internal world, and these are all tied together, you must do what you say and say what you do. If there's a difference in those things or a lack of alignment in those things, these toes aren't happy. And so be very conscious of, am I doing what I'm saying and saying what I'm doing? This toe pointing down is indicating to me that there are some things that you desire to do in this world that you are not doing. And so I encourage you to start doing that. The way you're showing up in action outside in the world, you show up and you are moving things in this world. I really love this straight toe. You can see that the toenail is starting to look a little bit to the future. I would just keep an eye on that. If it starts to shift further, that's telling you something. What I can see right now, I'm not seeing anything that I'm finding particularly concerning or that needs to be brought up, other than just keep an eye on that. Okay, your relationship toes, which I told you were the toes that one of the toes that I really want to talk to. So again, just looking at the difference in these, remembering right foot is how we present to the outside world. Left foot is how we are in our internal selves. So your left relationship toe here, really look at your relationships. Are they fulfilling? Are they relationships of equity and equality? What relationships need to change in dynamics? Are there people inside your circles that don't belong there? Or are there people that are not in your circles that do belong in your circles? And are there people within your outer circles that could benefit you and them if they moved to your inner circles, or vice versa? So just looking at your relationships. I know that that was a lot. So just looking at those relationships would be really, really great. And then let's look over here at your internal relationship. See how this toe is really leaning to this toe. It's almost like your spirit path toe and your relationship toe are looking at each other. And then you've got your communication and your action toe right here in between. So how is your relationship with self and your relationship with spirit going? Do you feel like there's a little bit of a battle there, or some ungroundedness, some questions, some uncertainty? What is showing up there? And this toe is really leaning towards the future. So, what are you not doing now? Action toe. What are you not saying now? Communication, expression toe. What are you not expressing that you desire to express that would bring your relationship with yourself into alignment? This is also tons of generational. I see tons of generational stuff, specifically in these last two toes. So, generationally, what is in your past, uh, ancestrally, that could have impacted these toes? Relationships that were not healthy, relationships of codependence, relationships of abuse, relationships that of convenience, but not really, just somewhere of a comfort, but toxicity within that comfort. Uh, so just looking at what does that look like. I would also really recommend on this toe, on these last two toes on both feet, specifically on the left foot, massaging them. That manual manipulation of these toes can help release the energy. You can see that there's some blocked energy in there. And as you massage and manually manipulate those, some affirmations. I am safe. I know my boundaries. I don't need to defend my boundaries because my boundaries just show up in my dynamics and in who I am. I show up in my relationships in equality. So things like that, as well as asking yourself questions. What is this toe trying to tell me? What are some relationships, either with myself or others, that the dynamic can change for both of our benefit? Or what are some things that I need to express or do to create a better, healthier, stronger, more cohesive and aligned dynamic within my relationships? So that's your relationship toes. These last two toes are very interesting toes. These are our trust and prosperity toes. And so you can see specifically, I want to really talk about this one on your left toe. Lots of blocked energy. Also, leaning under your relationship toe, almost hiding. Like I can hardly see the nail here from this photo. So leaning under that relationship toe. And then this relationship toe looks like it's trying to lean under the action toe. And so there is some trust. Now, granted, we live in a world where trust is not always the smart thing, where we need to use our intuition to decide who to trust. I see this as more of a rebellion from bowing to authority. I'm going to guess that you have spent a good chunk of your life, and even now, even though it's not being expressed outwardly, looking for authority. We're trained to do this. As women, we are specifically trained to do this, to seek authority outside of ourselves instead of within ourselves. And because I know you and I know what you do, I know that this is an area of passion for you. And my guess is that because you know how it feels to not be your own authority. There's still more work to do in this. So continue to do the work that you're doing as you manually manipulate this toe. Ask yourself, where am I bowing to authority? To what relationship am I looking to provide trust and prosperity? A lot of times our ties to prosperity are tied into an intimate relationship, especially a partner, where we feel at a subconscious level most of the time, like somehow our prosperity is tied to theirs. So I invite you to explore this, even if it feels painful. If you are resisting it at all, there's a thread to be followed in there. The resistance is telling you something. I would also explore, what would it look like to be more trusting? What would it look like to trust people and to trust myself with people? And not look to the future, not look to the past, but be here in the present and trust. You know that your body will tell you who you can trust and who not to trust. And at the end of the day, the lifetime value of trusting, living vulnerably, and living full out is far greater than the payoff of quote unquote protecting yourself and not playing full out because of building those walls and protecting yourself. What I said here about this toe on the internal side can be said of this same toe on the external side. It's just a little bit less pronounced than it is on this side. And so still, here's one more thing on this side. Can you trust yourself? And I know that your first answer is yes, I could feel that. Dig into that. Where do you not trust yourself? Where do you wonder if you will make it? What are you willing to lose? And the more important question is, what are you not willing to lose? Because this toe is showing some attachments. And what you are not willing to lose is where your attachments are. Here on the outside, the way that you show up, the way that you're presenting is a little bit more trusting. I think this has to do with leadership. So a question to ask yourself here, if you weren't in charge of this relationship or if you weren't being the leader, what would that feel like to you? Can you be a first follower, or do you always have to be the leader? What does that look like for you? How well can you follow? Because first followers or first adopters are just as big of a leader as the innovative leader, because that innovative leader has no following unless they get followers. And so those first few followers are the brave ones who are also leaders who see a good idea. And that's a theme that I'm seeing in your toes, is asking yourself, what would it look like if I stepped back from being the leader and I was a follower to leaders that I trust, and not bowing to their authority, but working with them and following them, not in a hierarchical sense, but in a partnership sense, walking beside them. And this can look a number of ways, but the number one way I see for you is following that leader, also knowing that if they deviate from what feels in alignment for you and it stops working for you, you can walk away. There's nothing tying you to that leader. We feel like we have to have this sense of loyalty. And just because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean that you lack loyalty. Or if you're not working for someone else, doesn't mean they're not loyal to you. It just means that whatever is going on isn't working for them anymore or for you anymore because you've parted paths. So explore that out, manually manipulate that. I would even recommend doing that before we meet, is manually manipulate that while asking these questions, and then journal about what that is. You have the lovely sixth toe, this kind of bulge here on the outside. This is a global perspective. You care deeply about humanity, and you definitely have this global perspective, this global view, this expansive view. And through being grounded by expanding your leadership abilities, which honestly, just by being more grounded and by getting more in alignment on your life and specifically your spirit path toes, that leadership and that support there is just going to show up in greater measure to you. So the top things from this reading until we have our meeting is to ponder what's your spirit toe telling you. Ponder, how can my internal communication, expression, and action more fully align with my authentic essence? Look generationally to your relationships and manually manipulate these while giving yourself these affirmative statements, these affirmations. And I would say, even more importantly, asking questions. What is this toe here now? And you and me here together now. What is this communicating to you? And then these pinky toes, these trust prosperity toes as well, specifically this left one. So that is your reading for now. I'm really looking forward to talking to you on Thursday and getting more insights from you so that we can explore these areas out. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see ya.